Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by our friends at Rocky's Venture Club, an angel investing group dedicated to accelerating economic development by educating and connecting investors and entrepreneurs. Their mission is to advance economic development in the Rocky Mountain region. And on today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, I thought I'd answer a question that I ask almost every guest that comes on our show. What advice would I give my 21-year-old self? If I could call that young man coming out of the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma at the age of 21, what would I tell him? I think the answer, by the way, changes depending on how old you are and how much you've learned in life and how much you've experienced. So we're recording this podcast, by the way, on April 12th, 2020, and I'm 52 years old. Here's what I would tell myself if I could call that young man. 5 tips I think I would give him. Probably a lot more than this, but if I had to narrow it down to 5, here's what I'd say. Number 1, I'd say be less cocky and be more humble. That's number 1. I was super cocky coming out of high school and college. And while confidence is good, and I think that did play a part in some of my success and getting things done and accomplished, I think it also hurt some early relationships that I could have fostered a little bit better. I was just super cocky. I thought I knew everything. And I would just encourage myself to be a little more humble. I think I would have had even a better chance to win people over than I already did. Number 2, I would tell myself to listen more and talk less. It kind of ties to number 1, but I thought I knew everything. I thought I was super smart. And I could have spent a lot more time asking questions and listening to people that had been there and done that, mentors, executives. I could have learned a lot faster if I would have just listened more and talked less. Number 3, networking. I just didn't understand how important networking was when I was younger. I really didn't. I thought, I guess just looking back, I thought, if I just work harder than everybody else, then I'll be successful. And that's what matters. And so I worked myself into the ground. I just worked all the time. In fact, it cost me my first marriage. And while that did get me promoted to a certain degree, I could have done even better and moved up even more if I really understood how important networking was and connecting with the right people and knowing the right people. It's so important. Make sure that you are taking advantage of meeting people and getting in certain circles that can help open doors for you. It's just really important. And I didn't do that enough when I was younger. Number 4. This ties a little bit to number 3, but number 4 is valuing the relationships a little more than I did. Even the people I did meet along the way with my poor networking, I didn't manage those relationships as carefully as I should. And some of them I should still have today. If I would have managed those relationships right, I would still have those connections today, but a lot of them I don't. In fact, if you asked me to list 20 people that I talk to on a regular basis right now today at the age of 52, I don't think there's one person on that list that came from that period in between the age of 20 and let's say 30. So I could have done a lot better job in managing and valuing relationships early on. Again, it could have opened a lot more doors for me and probably still could be opening doors for me today if I would have done a better job of that. So that's number 4. And number 5, what would I tell my 21-year-old self? And again, there's a lot more than 5, but these are just my top 5. And what would I tell that person today? I would say, enjoy the downtime and the time off and vacations a little more. I often talk to my wife about this now at the age of 52, and I just worked all the time. And it's not, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. As you get older, you're going to regret the fact that you didn't take more time off and enjoy the downtime. I always felt guilty about that. For some reason, I always had this weird guilty feeling anytime I wasn't working. And some of that comes from my good old fashioned Oklahoma upbringing where they pound work ethic into you, which is good to a certain degree, but it can also be damaging long term. And so I would encourage myself to just take more time off and enjoy life a little bit more. And there is your Riderflex tip of the day. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.